What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're recapping and reviewing episode 6 of Dexter Original Sin, so let's get into it. Episode 6 is called The Joy of Killing, and it opens up with Captain Spencer's son and ex-wife in their garage getting ready in their car to go somewhere, and the kidnapper who previously kidnapped Jimmy Powell shows up, punches the mom, ties her up, and takes Nikki. Captain Spencer's son Nikki was abducted. And then in our next scene, Deb and Dexter are talking about the upcoming double date with him and Sophia and her and Gio. She picks out something for him to wear and doesn't want Dexter to embarrass her. She kind of gives him a talk like, do not be yourself on this double date at all. And then Harry comes in, tells Dexter it's time for work. They have a new crime scene and asks Deb, when do I get to meet the boyfriend? And then he tells Dexter to keep an eye on her and report back about the boyfriend. At the crime scene, the victim has a plastic bag over his head and Dexter's kind of giving the rundown, what he thinks happened. He says there were no defensive wounds, no skin under the nails, no drugs, but the victim does have self-inflicted marks on his arms and bruises on the arms. Dexter says he was tied up, but the killer removed it before leaving the body. And then he discovers that there were 2 bags on the guy's head because the killer wanted to savor the kill and make it last longer. And the second he said that about savoring the kill, it made me think about the Coconut Grove murder from a previous episode because he said the same thing, that it was all about the kill and the killer wanted to savor it. So what the killer did was put one bag over the guy's head, poked a hole in it so that he could breathe, and then put another bag over that one to savor the kill. So like I said, Dexter thinks the kills are connected. This one, the Coconut Grove one, and then the one from the first episode or second episode. But Harry says that the methods of murder are all different, and Dexter says the killer is still finding out what he likes. Harry says maybe they're all just coincidences and mugging's gone wrong, but Dexter finds money in the pocket and says they weren't mugged. And then we get another Harry flashback with him and Laura. They're hooking up in bed and then they're laying in bed together afterwards. He's kind of thinking to himself. She asks, what is it? He says, I should be going. I'm sure my wife is wondering where I am. Laura says, I never thought I'd be the other woman and I don't feel good about it. Harry says, I didn't exactly expect it either. Laura asks, what's next then with the case? It's been almost a year. He says, we almost gathered enough evidence to put Estrada away and close this case once and for all. And he says he's gonna get her out soon. We also find out that Deborah is going to be born really soon, so just like Laura says, it has almost been a year that she's been working for Harry. Because in the previous episode, episode 5, we had just found out Doris was pregnant and now she's about to give birth soon. So there's been a big time jump within these flashbacks since episode 5. And then in our next scene, we're at Miami Metro. And Dexter's voiceover is kind of saying how if he kills Levi Reed, that would make kill number 3 for him. And it's a big decision because 3 kills makes a serial killer. And then Sanders, one of the cops at Miami Metro, gets a call about Spencer's kid. Spencer is obviously infuriated. He throws a chair. The ex-wife shows up and her new man come to the station and they kind of get into a fight. Her fiance blames Spencer for Nikki getting kidnapped because he knew that this kidnapper / killer was going after kids of high profile people. And then we find out that Spencer's ex-wife was cheating on him for 14 years. That's crazy. And then he's kind of asking his ex like if she can remember anything about the killer. You know, do you remember if it was just one man? Can you describe him? And she reveals that he was wearing a mask and begs Spencer to find their son. And then Harry and Spencer kind of just talk out in the hallway about getting his son back. Spencer's like, first Judge Powell, now me. And then Dexter goes and stalks Levi Reed at a bar. And he's just kind of watching him, and his inner voice says how it's interesting to watch him when he's not killing. He seems almost normal. And he's kind of observing him and how he behaves around people, even as a serial killer. And Dexter also says guys like him are creatures of habit, and he has to use that to his advantage. Dexter says how his own rituals are growing and evolving. He's taking Polaroid pictures of the photos of Reed's victims, which he intends to bring to the kill room later to show Reed. And then we get another little scene with Camilla. She asks him what the Morgan family is doing this weekend. Her and Jean, her husband, are taking the boat out. Dexter tells her how he has a double date coming up. She's glad that he's putting himself out there and says how a boat is a great way to show a girl a good time, which, as we know, in the future, he's going to have a boat of his own, which he might actually get soon, because we find out later in this episode that his current way of disposing bodies is not going to work out for much longer, but we'll get to that towards the end of this video. Then Harry and Dexter are talking. Harry feels bad about Nikki getting kidnapped, and Dexter tells him we have 10 days to save him based on how long it was before Jimmy Powell showed up dead. And then we get another flashback with Harry. Him and Bobby are in the van listening in on Laura. She's at, the shipping containers, and Harry says to Bobby that Doris is due any day now, and Bobby says to him, "I hope you get your boy," and Harry says, "Me too." So this can kind of play into one of my previous theory videos. In episode 5, Harry says to Doris, "We've barely been trying to get pregnant." So I do have this theory that they might reveal in Original Sin that Harry isn't Deb's biological father, which could kind of explain why he kind of always ignores her entire life. But also the fact that he was hoping for a son, but he got a daughter instead. This could be why he never really bonds with Deb, and why he puts in more of an effort with Dexter, because he wanted a son. But now Laura goes inside. She sees a man tied up. He was taking money from them. So, one of the bad guys says to Laura, "This is what happens to liars," and they chop off his finger. Harry is about to go in there to save her, and Bobby says to him, "Are you sure you want to do that? You'll ruin a year's worth of work." And Harry says, "I can't let her die in there." But Bobby tells him to wait because they're letting her go. They actually promoted her kind of. And then we get to the double date, which I thought was such a fun scene. And now earlier, Deb was telling Dexter, don't be weird, don't embarrass me, be the opposite of yourself. But of course, upon meeting Gio, Dexter tells him that he has nice teeth, which I just thought was so funny. And then, as they're all scooting into the booth to sit, Dexter goes to sit next to Deb, and she's like, "Go sit next to Sophia, you dipshit." And then Dexter orders a ton of food for just himself because, as always, he's always hungry. They all ask Dexter about his internship, and he talks about the murder, and they're all kind of looking at him like he's weird because, he just talks about these things with no emotion, it doesn't affect him at all. And then, they're all playing darts. He shows Sophia how to throw the dart because he learned this from Reed, how to act with a girl. And then someone bumps into Deb and spills her drink, and Gio gets upset, which I think might be an issue that comes up in future episodes. He clearly has a short temper. And then Dexter goes to the bathroom. Sophia follows him in there, and she gives him a And then Deb and Sophia want to with Tiffany, the bitch from school, by stealing her car. Gio tries to hotwire her car, but Dex has to do it. So they steal Tiffany's car, and then they take it to the beach and just leave it there. Dexter drives Sophia home, and she wants to hang out with him tomorrow, but he says, "I can't, I'm going bowling," which is the same excuse that he uses in the future. And then we're back at Miami Metro. Spencer says we need a lead with who took my son. Tanya says we're re-examining all forensics. And then LaGuardia is looking into the murders, the other string of murders that Dexter thinks all have a connection. And she says that Dexter might be onto something with his theory. All of the victims are people with no family that no one would miss. So earlier in the episode, LaGuardia didn't think there was anything to Dexter's theory, but now she's kind of starting to agree with him. And then we get another flashback with Harry. He's looking at the finger that was chopped off. Laura says, "I can't go back in there. I won't come out alive. I want you to get me out. I'm gonna end up dead." And then Harry assures her, "I can keep you safe." But as we know, that's not true. Laura says to him, "Would you send your wife in there?" And then we find out that Doris had the baby. He shows up to the hospital, says that he was thinking of asking Bobby to be the godfather. And then Doris says to Harry, "You're a father again. You know what that means. You need to end it. I've known for a while, whoever it is, you can't see her anymore. You have to promise me." So Doris has known for a while now that he has been cheating on her with Laura. She doesn't know that it's with Laura, but she knows that he's cheating with someone. And Harry promises Doris that it's over. And then Dexter goes to follow Reed out on the town, and we see an ice truck. This was obviously a little Easter egg to the ice truck killer. Now, was it actually him? I don't know. It could have just been a random ice truck, but we did see Brian Moser in a previous episode. I believe it was episode 2, when Dexter goes to eat lunch at a restaurant with his coworkers, and someone comes up to him and says, "Are these seats taken?" That was definitely Brian Moser. They don't confirm it in the show, but you know, all the fans think it was Brian. The second this guy popped up on screen, I knew it was Brian. He looks exactly like him, dresses like him, has the same vibe. So Brian is definitely keeping tabs on Dexter. So it's pretty likely that this wasn't just a random ice truck and that he actually was driving it. Maybe he was out following Dexter. And then Dexter bumps into Sanders, one of the cops from Miami Metro. It appears he is at a gay bar, so I imagine this is going to come up in future episodes. He's probably not out, so he's gonna probably talk to Dexter like, "Please keep this a secret. Don't tell anyone at work that you saw me." And I bet Dexter didn't even realize what was going on or where he was. And then Dexter stabs Reed with the tranquilizer. This is the first time we're seeing him actually use the tranquilizer. In the previous episode, we saw how he obtained it, but this is the first time he's using it, and also the first time he's using the smelling salts to wake up his victim, which Harry gave him this tip in the previous episode. So Reed is strapped to his table. Dexter tells him how he's Harry Morgan's son and that Harry was gonna blow his brains out. Because if you remember from episode 5, Harry followed Reed to the bar and was going to shoot him, but Dexter stopped him. Dexter tells Reed how tonight I become a bona fide serial killer, shows him photos of his victims, and asks him, "Why didn't you rob them when they weren't home? Why did you choose a time that they would be home?" And Reed admits, "I wanted to see them beg for their lives, especially the little ones." So obviously this pisses Dexter off, and Reed tells him, "You're just like me." But Dexter says, "No, I only kill innocent people." And then in the next scene, we're back at Miami Metro. The assistant chief is there, and he asks, "Are we sure these cases are connected? Like the Jimmy Powell case and now Spencer's kid. Are we sure they're connected?" And Spencer says, "The judge was known for being a hard-on with cartels. Of course they're connected." Tanya says, "Whoever did this knew what they were doing, and the garage is clean. They didn't leave anything behind." Now, this little line from her makes me suspicious of her. In my previous recaps and theory videos, I've kind of been speculating with you guys who I think could be the one who killed Jimmy Powell. For a while, I thought that it was Spencer. And at the beginning of this current episode, I still thought that it could be Spencer who kidnapped his own kid to maybe teach his ex-wife a lesson. But now, towards the end of the episode, I'm more suspicious of Tanya because she said whoever did this knew what they were doing, didn't leave anything behind, and she is forensics. So, kind of like Dexter, she would know what cops are going to look for, and she would know what not to leave behind. And in this same scene, she gives us this suspicious look where the camera is just kind of on her for 1 second. She doesn't have any lines of dialogue, but it's very suspicious. So she's kind of moved up on my suspect list. She's a character who's just kind of always there, doesn't really have that much to do. And the fact that she is listed as a special guest star, a lot of times in the past seasons, the special guest star ends up being the killer. So she's now number 1 on my suspect list. Bobby says how they think that their suspect would be a high-ranking cartel person. Rafael Campos, someone who they arrested in the past, they think might be the killer. Spencer arrested him and Powell threw the book at him. So this Raphael person is kind of their number one suspect. And then the assistant chief tells Spencer he's too close to this. Spencer says, "What would you do? I'm right in the thick of it. My son is out there somewhere, scared shitless. It's killing me. If I fuck this up, my son dies." Also, something interesting I wanted to point out is that Captain Spencer, his office is the office where LaGuardia works as lieutenant in the future. So shouldn't the current lieutenant be in this office? Why is Captain Spencer in the lieutenant's office when in the future, Captain Matthews is elsewhere? Speaking of Matthews, where the hell is Matthews? He should be around. I'm surprised that he is not in this prequel. He's good friends with Harry. We see him in a bunch of the flashbacks in the original show, so where the hell is Captain Matthews? And then we see Dexter putting Reed's chopped up body in the back of a truck. Harry joins Spencer in his office to have a drink. Spencer says this is all my fault. I didn't do enough to keep Nikki safe. Harry tells him how it's hard being a father, practically impossible, and how that feeling never goes away. There's always going to be things out of your control and you can't protect them from everything. And then we see Nikki chained up the same place that Jimmy Powell was. And he gets fed the same food that Jimmy did, which they found in Jimmy's stomach. And then Dexter goes to dump the body with the alligators again, but he gets stopped by a cop because it's an active crime scene. The arm of Ferrer shows up. If you remember, I think maybe it was episode 3 or 4 when he kills Ferrer and feeds his body to the alligators. At the very end of that episode, his arm floats to the top of the water. And I said to you guys, is this going to pose an issue in the future? So his arm was found by police, which I'm thinking after this, Dexter's going to have to find a different place to dump the bodies, which I think was also hinted in this episode because Camilla said to Dexter, a boat is a good way to impress women. So I think going forward, we're going to see Dexter get his boat to kind of blend in, maybe take Sophia out on his boat, but also to find a different dumping place for his bodies. But that is it for today. That is my recap for episode 6. I thought this was a great episode. I enjoyed it a lot. I really just have not been disappointed yet with this show. It's interesting because you know how every season of Dexter kind of has like 2 main storylines? I kind of thought Levi Reed was going to be the second one. And then, you know, the killer who killed Jimmy Powell was going to be the main big bad. But now Reed's dead, so I guess the 3 murders that Dexter thinks there's a connection, that's going to be like the secondary storyline. But I wonder what's going on with that. But who do you guys think is the big bad? Who do you think is killing these kids? Or I guess they only killed 1 kid so far, but kidnapped Nikki. I thought it could be Spencer, but now my money is on Tanya. I shared with you guys that the show creators said that the big bad, the reveal is going to be insane and shocking. So who do you guys think it could be? Leave a comment down below. Don't forget that next week there is no episode. They're taking a week off. So there will not be a new episode on January 17th, but rather January 24th is episode 7. So stay tuned for that. I'm probably going to post a couple new theories between now and then, so stay tuned. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here, and I will see you guys next time.